Minister of Justice and his delegation, as well as the representations from the Magistrates Commission. Our members, we're holding this meeting also in view of the fact that the National Assembly is having a sitting at 1400 hours. So our intention is to try and finish this meeting within 2 hours or less. In terms of the program, the third item, which is the adoption of minutes, will be deferred so that we're able to deal with the two items that are presently on the program. So today we will be receiving a presentation and we would deliberate on the extradition and mutual legal assistance in criminal matters treaties between the Republic of South Africa and Mexico. These treaties fall within the ambit of international agreements envisaged by Section 231, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which requires the approval of both houses of Parliament for ratification in order to bind the Republic. We will then, in terms of the second agenda item, we'll also receive a briefing from the Magistrates Commission on the provisional suspension of Magistrate Mkanzi. And this is required by Section 13, subsection 3B of the Magistrates Act. In terms of procedure, it is expected that both houses of Parliament are required to pass a resolution whether or not the provisional suspension is confirmed or not. In terms of today's briefing, we will receive the presentations and members will be allowed to engage these presentations today. But in terms of taking any further deliberations and taking any decisions on these matters, both committees will deal with these issues separately, and I think both our meetings are actually scheduled for Friday. That's just in terms of procedure, honourable members. With regard to the first item in relation to the two treaties, we'll hand over to the department, Deputy Minister. We would give you at least 20 minutes to make your presentation on the two treaties. Honourable members, thereafter, we'll allow all members, if they do have questions, so that we also save time, and if members can be concise in terms of the questions they're asking, we'll allow you 2 minutes as well to raise your questions. Honourable members, without further waste of time, let me hand over to the Deputy Minister to deal with the first presentation on the two agreements, the two treaties. Deputy Minister, if I can hand over to you.
Chair, thanks very much. This is in fact the second treaty that, or extradition and mutual legal assistance that the committees have dealt with, Parliament have dealt with. You did the Bangladeshi one earlier. So I trust everybody is familiar with the fact that they make things easier, extradition to extradite somebody, mutual legal assistance to get a cooperation in an investigation. If you don't have a treaty, then there's the Extradition Act, which applies, and the President has to authorize the extradition, whereas if there is a treaty, it's the Minister of Justice. And there's a Mutual Legal Assistance Act of sorts, which deals with exchanges of information when you don't have either of those. So that's the general background. I would want to then hand over to Mr. Van Heerden, who would do the briefing. There is a slide presentation, which I don't know if that was sent to all the members, but can I hand over to Mr. Van Heerden?
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you, co-chairs. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, co-chairs, Deputy Minister, honourable members. Yes, as the Deputy Minister indicated, we've presented the treaties, I think, during February this year. The treaties with the United Mexican States are almost the same. Here and there's a slight something different. Once again, I would just, due to the technical nature of the majority of the articles. I'm just going to focus on the most important articles, and then also just to give you a background on how we got to this point where we submit to Parliament for ratification. If we look at the background, the treaties were already negotiated during 2000, and President Zuma then
Ms. Van Heerden?
authorized to sign the treaties on behalf of, yes?
I'm sorry to interject,
Can you hear
but
me?
your signal is not too good. So we miss out some
Yeah,
of what you said.
I think it's...
Can I propose that either you
Yeah,
move or you
also
switch off your
can't hear you
camera?
now.
Mr.
Okay,
Van
let's
Heerden?
see, switch off the camera.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes, it is. Please go ahead.
Okay, just to indicate again, the treaties were negotiated during 2012. Former President Zuma then authorized Minister Gadebe to sign on behalf of the government. The treaties were then, during 2014, submitted to the former minister for submission to Parliament for ratification. But for some reason, it seems that the treaties never reached Parliament. After various inquiries, we must resubmit. Mission. We received information that apparently there was a change of government in Mexico, and there's a possibility that they might request that we effect certain amendments to the treaty negotiated. So we've requested DIRCO to consult with the Mexican authorities to determine what's the status of the agreement and whether any amendments would be necessary. And then during November 2019, we have received a communication from DIRCO that no further amendments would be necessary, or that no amendments would be necessary, and we can proceed with the ratification process. And thereafter, then we've requested the Minister to submit the treaties to Parliament. That's just on the background. I think, as the Deputy Minister already can extradite and we can provide assistance even in the absence of treaties. Our legislation makes provision. So the question is actually, why the need for treaties? Very, very, very briefly, with Latin America, we've identified drug trafficking as a big problem. And the only intention was that the treaty with Mexico will assist to fight drug trafficking specifically. Maybe I can also just mention, for interest's sake, that we had a treaty with Mexico dating back to 1886. It was signed on even September 1886. And that was when South Africa was still a British colony. And those treaties are still need that we now get a new treaty in place. One of the reasons, and then the treaty then also makes it easy for the requesting state to know exactly what information is needed for successful processing of. Then lastly, normally especially where language is an issue,
Mr. Van
the
Heerden.
translation is so bad that yes.
Mr. Van Heerden,
Let me know again.
I hope it's not just myself who's having a problem. Are you able to move to a better signal?
I'm in my office. My laptop is to the network point, so I can't really move in the office.
Okay, you're sounding better. You may
Can you hear
continue.
me?
Yes.
Okay. The other benefit of a treaty is then also that we can reduce invalid request. So that was the main reason why we've decided to conclude these treaties with Mexico. Then I will move on to the, and I'm just going to highlight the most important articles, and I will immediately start with Article 2, extraditable offences, and that would be then where the offence in both states. So there's a requirement of dual criminality. It must be an offence in both states, and the punishable, or which is offence, must then be for a period of. Let me put it this way: an extraditable offence is an offence which is punishable under the laws of both states by privation of liberty for a period of at least 1 year or more. So the sentence must be at least 1 year or longer. The request for extradition relates to deprivation of liberty by a court after requesting for an extraditable offence. Extradition shall be granted if the period of imprisonment that must still 6 months or longer. And then offence will be an extraditable offence whether or not the laws of the states place the offence within the same category or offences described by the same terminology. And then offence of a fiscal character relate to customs duties, exchange control, despite the fact that the requested state does not impose the same kind of taxes or duties. If we look at Article 3, that's for mandatory grounds for refusal. We say a political offence can never be an extraditable offence, and that political offence does not include or a member of his family. Where the prosecution is based on that person's race, religion, national, ethnic, age, political opinion, and a number of other let me just yeah. Can you hear me now? Can you hear
we can
me?
Hear you, but not very clearly. But please, if you've got about
so where
about, hello, Mr. Van Heerden, you've got at least about 10 minutes to finish your presentation.
Okay. And then
Deputy Minister, I'm not sure if you can assist us.
That's also mandatory ground.
I'm not. I mean, Mr. Van Heerden is in. I'm not sure where he is. Whether he's in the office in Pretoria, but I'm not there. Mr. Van Heerden, can you not, Mr. Van Heerden?
Yeah.
Your line is very bad. Can you not find a better place where there's better reception? I don't know how long that will take you, because the one issue, Chair, may be to proceed with the Magistrates Commission because they're in a different venue, and allow Mr. Van Heerden time to try and get a better connection.
Then yes, I can do that, but then it would just mean that I will have to move to Salu, perhaps to the DG's office, and that's going to take me 5-10 minutes.
Where you are now is a little bit better.
Is it better now?
Maybe you shouldn't move a lot, Mr. Van Heerden, when you speak. But yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, Chair. Okay, then where prosecution is barred by prescription under the laws of the requesting state. Military offences, which is not also a criminal offence, cannot be extradited. And then where a person has been acquitted or convicted in the requested state for the same offence for which extradition is requested. Then there's a provision in Article 4, once again, that takes care of the death penalty, where we say where the death penalty is opposed, we will not extradite unless sufficient assurances are given that the death penalty will not be imposed, or if imposed, will not be carried out. Nationality, Article 5, extradition shall not be refused on the grounds of the nationality of a person. Under Article 6, we make provision for discretionary grounds for refusal. The requested state has jurisdiction to prosecute, so where the requested state can prosecute, we can decide not to extradite. Humanitarian grounds, where the person sought is old or there's medical grounds, physical ability to be extradited. And then Article 17, we're looking at the rule of specialty, and there we just say the person shall not be prosecuted, sentenced, detained, or re-extradited to a third state for any offence other than the offence for which the extradition was requested. So he can only be prosecuted for the offence for which we've extradited him. Article 18, expenses. When we receive a request, we must do everything necessary to execute the request in South Africa, and then the requesting state will be responsible for the transfer of the person to the requesting state and any other where there's specific extraordinary expenses for the extradition. Article 24, we're talking about when will it enter into force. It's subject to ratification. Instruments of ratification will be exchanged, and 30 days after the exchange, the treaty will enter into force. We also make provision for amendment and then also for termination. Then I'm going to move to the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. Article 1, scope of application. There we just say the treaty provides for various forms of assistance, and then we name what we can do. But there's also a provision to say any form of assistance is possible as long as it's not in conflict with the domestic law of the requested state. So we can do anything they ask us as long as it's not in conflict with our domestic law. And maybe also just to mention that deal criminality is not a requirement under mutual legal assistance. Article 2, execution of requests. We should execute a request promptly in accordance with our law of the requested state. The request shall not be refused on the grounds of bank secrecy. And then Article 5 talks to refusal or postponement of assistance, where we say, although various grounds for refusal exist, the requested state may refuse assistance if the execution of the request would not impair its sovereignty, security, public order, or other essential public interests. And then we may also set conditions for the execution of the request. Proceeds of crime, we can shall upon where there's a request, we can seize the proceeds of crime, and the proceeds shall then be shared between the requesting and the requested party on a 50-50 basis. Expenses, once again, the requested state shall bear all expenses relating to the execution of the request. The requesting state shall pay fees for experts, translation, transcription, allowances, and expenses to travel. And then also in the event of extraordinary expenses, the two states shall consult. And that's the entry into force is exactly the same in the mutual legal assistance as with the extradition treaty, and that's where I'm going to stop for then.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Van Heerden. Deputy Minister, do you want to have a final say?
Chair, no, I've got nothing more to say.
Okay, no, thank you, Deputy Minister and Mr. Van Heerden. All members, if we can engage with this presentation, are you able to indicate in the chat group or raise your hand that you wish to ask a question? Our members? I think in the chat group we only have Honorable M, who has a question.
I think it's me, Co-Chair.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. I only have one question.
Before you ask the question, Honorable Masego Jele, Honorable Jenkins, could you please mute your mic? Honorable Janki.
Chairperson, I also have questions.
Thank you, Honorable Motsamai. Any other member? So there's nothing indicating in the chat group, no have members raised their hands. I take it that there are only 2 questions, Honorable members. I think as I indicated before, we'll take all questions now, and then we'll only allow for follow-up. So I've noted only 2 people who want to ask the questions. I'm going to go with the 2. Unless there's somebody else who has the difficulty in terms of the raising their hand or using the chat group. Can you indicate if you have a question now? Because I won't come back to this process. Honourable members? Okay, so we only have 2 people who have raised their hands. Honourable Maseko Jele, if you can go first, and followed by Honourable Motsamai. Ma'am?
Okay, thank you, Co-Chair. My question is only one. When I was reading this document, and also when Mr. Van Heerden was presenting, I noted that the document was supposed to go long ago before this committee to Parliament, but there were some delays. So maybe if we can know exactly what was happening, what caused those delays, are we not going to have those delays in future? Whoever, if there was a person who was responsible for that, was there anything happened? Because for me, Co-Chair, I see just an embarrassment for South Africa. South Africa was very much embarrassed because we had to go back to Mexico, and from the presentation, the government changed. Now we go back and find out if maybe there's still anything that they would want to change or whatever. Can we find out exactly who was responsible for sitting on this document, if it was a person? So that, and my question is that, is anything maybe happened to that person? Because we don't want such issues going forward. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, ma'am. Honourable Motsamai? Honourable Motsamai?
Thanks, Chairperson. I would like to ask the Deputy Minister. I would like to know when is his department is going to suspend people who were involved in a corruption of Bosasa. There are officials that are being.
Honourable Motsamai, can you? Honourable Motsamai?
On a point of order.
Honourable Motsamai, we're dealing with the treaties, the 2 treaties. Do you have a question in relation to the treaties? I hear someone calling order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm ruling him out of order as well. Honourable Motsamai? Okay, I take it you don't have a question in relation to the 2 treaties. Let me hand over to the Deputy Minister to respond to the 1 question.
Chair, thanks. I think if Mr. Van Heerden can respond to it, please.
Thank you, DM. Yes, certainly. Maybe just to indicate, we've submitted, as I've indicated, after the treaties were signed, we've made a submission to the Minister all the documents were signed, all the documents for Parliament was in the cover of the memo. We received the memorandum back without the documents. So we were under the impression that the documents were submitted to Parliament for the necessary processes. And then we realized after a few months that nothing is happening, and we started inquiring whether the documents, because the documents went through ministry and it never reached Parliament. And I think after the minister, the former minister, that was still Mr. Gadebe, when he left, we once again made inquiries, and then we were requested to submit new documents. So I can't really give an explanation of I've got the memo back in my office without any documents, so we don't know what happened with the documents from
823 firearms with the ammunition 46.
Mexico.
I don't know who the introductions is.
Can you hear me?
Is somebody in two meetings? It would appear. Okay, Mr. Van Heerden, please.
Chair, I
Mr.
can't
Van
hear.
Heerden. Mr. Van Heerden, we can hear you.
Okay, maybe just to indicate that Mexico also only ratified the treaties during June last year. So it's not that they are waiting. I mean, it's almost a year later, but it's not that they're waiting for us from 2014.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Heerden. Deputy Minister, do you want to add to that, or are you comfortable with the response?
Well, look, obviously the delay is problematic, and yeah, we will go into it more and ensure that there are better systems in place.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Deputy Minister. Honourable Mr. do you have a follow-up?
Yes, Chair, it's not. No, I'm happy. Chair. The Deputy Minister will handle that.
Thank you.
Future promises. Thank you, Chair. I'm okay.
Okay, there's a number. Someone is making noise in the background. Could you kindly, everybody, please mute your mic? Thank you. Honourable Nita, you want to ask a question? Honourable Nita?
Chair. Yes, Chair. I wanted to make a follow-up to the response of the Minister, Chair. That I agree with him 100%, Chair, that the response that were given by the presenter is not satisfactory, Chair. It gives you an indication that the department doesn't have a system of tracking their treaties. If he's saying to us they did everything only to realize that it was not taken to Parliament, it's true that we really need to get a full response to that without delaying the treaty itself, but in terms of making sure that this thing doesn't repeat itself. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Nita. Can I request IT to deal with these rogue elements that keep turning on them? And I'm not sure what is going on. Deputy Minister, there's that comment from Honourable Nita.
No, what I'd like to say is noted. We will follow up and try and ensure that there are better systems.
Right. I see Honourable Vanessa. Mike.
Yeah, ne? Yeah.
No, can we remove these people that keep unmuting their mics for absolutely no reason? Honourable members, please mute your mics. And I don't think we can take any more interruptions in this meeting. Honourable Zandamela, you lowered your hand. It's okay. Thank you, Honourable members. Honourable members, I think before we dispense of this item, I see your hand raised again. Honourable Zandamela, do you have a question? The reason I'm allowing it, or I may allow it, is because there have been very few questions in terms of this treaty. Honourable Zanamela, can you clarify why you're raising your hand?
No, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to check. I know it was raised by one of the honourable members earlier on. Why was it not taken to Parliament? I mean, we didn't get a clear answer. You know, if maybe you can if you can be assisted just there. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to respond. I mean, Mr. Van Heerden did give an explanation. I'm personally not aware of any of this, and have said we will investigate. But I don't know if Mr. Van Heerden can maybe clarify again.
Maybe, Deputy Minister, you did indicate that you will go back and investigate and look into the matter. Perhaps this is something we can even engage with you further in future engagements in relation to treaties. I don't want to go back to Mr. Van Heerden because of the quality of his, and perhaps in future.
Yes, Chairperson. It was very difficult to hear what Mr. Van Heerden is saying. You know, hence our my question. I thought maybe the minister, the deputy minister, actually had a response to that. You know, thanks. But Van Heerden can start. Maybe I don't know.
Honourable Zanamela, thank you. I think the deputy minister did indicate that they'll look deeper into this matter, and perhaps as we continue engagements on the treaties, we would at that point also get a response from the minister in terms of what actually went wrong and how what kind of systems they're going to put in place to ensure that this doesn't actually happen again. On members, I think it will also be important to mention that in terms of diplomatic relations between South Africa and Mexico, which were established in terms of the new dispensation on the 27th of October, 1993, the bilateral relations between South Africa and Mexico have been good, and the two countries have been working closely over these years. And this year, 2020, marks 26 years since the establishment of bilateral diplomatic relations between the two countries. And clearly, these treaties will improve the effectiveness of law enforcement authorities of both countries in investigation, prosecution, and prevention of crime through cooperation and mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. And I'm sure that in the next meeting, when we deal with the decisions of the committee, we'll note that these treaties will strengthen the fight in all forms of international crimes, as well as strengthen relations between South Africa and Mexico. And I think with that, Deputy Minister, let me thank you and Mr. Van Heerden for your presentation. And we'll, honourable members, I think we should move on to the next issue, the briefing by the Magistrates Commission. Deputy Minister, thank you on that one. Let me then hand over to the Magistrates Commission to deal with the issue of Magistrate Mkanzi. Deputy Minister, did you need to say something?
No, I mean, I saw it was Mr. Mohammed and the Secretary of the Commission, and I saw Mr. Mayor was also, I think, in the meeting, so it would be between them to work out who's going to present. I think it's usually Mr. Mayor, but I'm not sure.
Yes, good morning. Honourable Chairperson, it's Advocate Musa.
Okay, thank you.
Advocate Musa, sorry, I didn't see you. Yes, no, I didn't see you. Okay, sorry, the chair of the Ethics Committee is here. Chair, can he present? We'll start the presentation.
Thank you,
please. Advocate Musa, you have 20 minutes to, and I hope you wouldn't take that much time to make your presentation. Thank you.
Honourable Chair, honourable members, this is the report on the provisional suspension of the magistrate, Mr. Eltim Kansi, who is the regional magistrate in Bloemfontein. Honourable members, you will recall and remember that the purpose of this report is to inform Parliament of the provisional suspension of Mr. Eltim Kansi pending the outcome of an investigation into his fitness to hold office as a magistrate, as required by Section 13(3)(b) of the Magistrates Act 90 of 1993. The background of the matter is very simply that Mr. Mkansi is a regional magistrate, 49 years old, and he was appointed as a regional magistrate on the 1st of December 2013. The misconduct charges that have been preferred against Mr. Mkansi relates to prima facie evidence that he, during the period 28 March 2017 and 04 May 2018, on numerous occasions communicated on his cellular telephone with an accused person who appeared before him in the criminal courts on 24 counts of fraud. And how the evidence, in fact, came out in this particular matter was as a result of the South African Police Services investigating the telephone records, the cellular mobile phone records of the accused person in the course of its investigation. And during this investigation, it stumbled upon the numerous telephone calls that were made between Mr. Mkansi and the accused person. Initially, when the matter was placed before the Ethics Committee by the Ethics Division, the Ethics Division recommended that the matter not be pursued because it was only one single count of a telephone call that was made between the parties. However, the Ethics Committee, having carefully considered the position, ordered a Regulation 26(1) investigation, which subsequently then revealed that there were these 49 instances of telephone calls emanating between the regional magistrate as well as the accused. Subsequently, thereafter, the Magistrates Commission, then you will see, honorable members, has prepared a charge sheet, and in terms of Section 13(3)(a) of the Act, the Minister, on the advice of the Magistrates Commission, may provisionally suspend a magistrate from office. We of the view that we've given the magistrate a reasonable opportunity to be heard regarding the desirability of such provisional suspension, and the Commission was satisfied, or is satisfied, that reliable evidence exists indicating that an allegation against the magistrate is of such a serious nature as to make it inappropriate for the magistrate to perform the functions of a judicial officer while the allegation is being investigated. To that extent, honorable members, you will see in the documents that have been provided to you the draft charge sheet. You will also see that the Honorable Minister on the 9th of May 2020, under his hand at Pretoria, has decided to provisionally suspend Mr. Eltim Kansi from the office of the magistrate. The evidence that the Magistrates Commission has prima facie is indicative of serious transgression on the part of Mr. Eltim Kansi. The only aspect that we will perhaps ask, you will observe from the documents of record, is that we have not recommended that Mr. Eltim Kansi be suspended from office without remuneration. So we've not asked that he be suspended without remuneration, and we accordingly present this report for consideration by Parliament in terms of Section 13(3)(b), which requires the Magistrates Commission to table this report within a period of 7 days after the commencement of the session or the commencement of the next ensuing session of Parliament. So our request today is respectfully to ask Parliament to pass a resolution as to whether or not the provisional suspension of the magistrate is confirmed, and we respectfully request that on the available evidence before Parliament, that it would be appropriate for Parliament to pass a resolution that the magistrate be provisionally suspended from office. So that is in a nutshell the briefing that we have in respect of this particular matter. Honourable members, I draw your attention briefly to the transcript of the proceedings, where initially the magistrate went through a bit of a process to recuse himself, but I respectfully submit that the allegations are of such a serious nature that the clarion call in this particular instance will simply be for a provisional suspension for Mr. Eltim Kansi with immediate effect, pending the outcome of an investigation into his fitness to hold such office. Accordingly, that will be my briefing in this particular matter. I'm not certain if Mr. Mayor would like to add anything, but we are more than happy, Honourable Chairperson, to take questions as we normally always do from the Honourable members.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to add anything? Mr. Mayor?
Hello.
Okay. Yes.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, Honourable DM, I just want to confirm that all time frames in respect of the Act have been complied with in presenting this report timeously and have it tabled in Parliament within the time frames set out in the Act.
Okay, thank you. Honourable members, Mr. Mayor, if you can mute your mic, please. Thank you. Honourable members, are there any questions that you'd like to raise? I have noted Honourable Jantjies. Is there any other member that would want to raise a question?
Nita.
Honourable Nita.
Zandamela.
Okay, Honourable Zandamela. Honourable Glennis, do you want to speak?
Mola. Mola.
Mola.
Dodovu.
Okay, Honourable Dodovu.
Mola.
Honourable Masakejele.
Mola.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last name.
Mola. Can you hear me now?
Oh, Mola. Honourable Mola. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, it sounded like Mola, but with a male voice. I got confused. Okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
We also have Honorable Jantjie who also wants to ask a question.
Yes, I've got his name already. I noted him. Thank you, Mr. Romano. All members, is that all? Because I'm not going to take a second round of questions. We'll only do follow-ups. Okay. So, all members, I've noted Honorable Jantjies, Honorable Nita, Honorable Zandamela, Honorable Glennis. I'm not sure if you want to speak, but and I suspect your surname. Okay.
Hi, it's Glennis Breitenbach, and I don't have a question. Thank you. I only will support the request to suspend.
Okay, no, it's fine. Thank you. Honorable Mola, Honorable Dodovu, Honorable Masakejele, and Honorable Mola. Okay, we'll start with Honorable Jantjies.
Sorry, Honorable Hendricks, if possible.
Honorable Chair.
Can I speak, Chair?
Is that Honorable who? Hendricks. Honorable Hendricks, can you mute your mic, please? You're disturbing this meeting. Okay, Honorable Jantjies, you may start, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Am I audible?
Yeah, very audible, but you're not visible.
Thank you,
so that's
Chair.
okay.
As long as you can hear me, that's fine. I just want to raise the first thing so that we don't get this problem, because there's a technology here that guides all of us. You raise your hand in the technology so that we don't make noise and shout so and so. It disturbs our meeting when we do that. Let's just get to the queue of it. That's a side issue. The real issue I want to raise, Chair, I want to propose that we support the recommendation for the provisional suspension of Magistrate Mukanzi pending a further investigation. I want to concretely make that proposal, Chair. Having said that, there's something I want to raise with the chair of the ethics committee, Mr. Musa, and his team. The last time we dealt with the matter of magistrate suspension, I think in March or February, we did raise a concern about some systemic issues in the magistracy, especially in the ethics committee, and we have asked them to come back to us for a further detailed presentation. We're not happy about some of the procedures and processes. And I would like to remind them that we're still waiting for that kind of a fuller presentation. It is also very clear, much as I support this, the ethics division initially dropped the ball, if you listen to them, that they initially dropped the case on the basis that there was only one phone call. And it's those kind of things where they then put to question this method of investigation. So it means they only active there's about 40 cases. So if it was 2, it's likely to be dropped. So I am very concerned about that initial dropping of that case on the basis that there was just one call. I completely don't accept that, because it's a poor standard that they are setting in terms of investigation. So those are going to be my 2 points on the presentation. I want to raise a last point, if you permit me, to the Deputy Minister and Mr. Mohammed, who is here for the Magistrate Commission, in relation to a COVID-related matter in the courts in the Western Cape. I want him to just respond and either confirm these issues and indicate what actions are being taken. I want to draw the attention of the Deputy Minister that as we speak today, in the Western Cape, the epicenter of the COVID-19 in South Africa, I have come across reports that there are about 15 courts where magistrates or interpreters have tested positive. And I just want him to, and I'll list for him very slowly. It's Vredenburg in the West Coast, it's Goodwood in Cape Town, it's Bishop Lavis in Cape Town, it's Blue Downs, a senior magistrate in Blue Downs, it's Cape Town Court, it's Paarl in the Cape Winelands, it's Vredendal, it's Piketberg, it's Athlone, it's Fazeka, it's Stellenbosch, it's Khayelitsha, it's Philippi, Worcester. This has happened in the last 3 days. And the last one is Sierra. I would want him to take this up with the Department of Labor, because 2 weeks ago, that decontaminated and nothing is happening there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Jantjies. Honorable Nita. Honorable Nita.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, thank you again. What I would like to say, Chair, the report is quite straightforward and the transgressions are very serious, Chair. I was also raising my hand, Chair, to support the suspension, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Zandamela. Honorable Zandamela.
No, thank you, Chairperson. Now, this is an ethical conduct from the magistrate chair, and obviously this is an act of corruption. I'm actually having a serious problem, Chair, when corrupt individuals must be suspended with full salary. I don't know how did the commission come to that, but I would like the Deputy Minister please to just, since there's enough evidence, and then if he can maybe indicate how long will the whole issue drag. You know, since there's evidence, there's everything, and they can't just keep people on the payroll, corrupt people on the payroll. If you can just perhaps indicate how long is the matter going to take. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zandamela. Honorable Mola.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the report. Chairperson, I support the suspension of Mr. El Mukansi pending a further investigation. And I want to raise this to the Ethics Committee's decision. It is unacceptable, Chairperson, if they can make a decision without a thorough investigation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Dodovo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I think I concur that the report is straightforward, and it is quite clear that the Commission has followed all the necessary processes to arrive at a point where they suspend the magistrate. But of what is concerned to me, or let me put it as a question, if there is criminal act on the part of a suspect or a person suspended, at what point does the Magistrate Commission refer this matter to the relevant authorities for the institution of criminal proceedings against that particular suspect? Would they wait for the disciplinary process to be finalized, or this particular processes must run concurrently? Because I support the fact that if there is any criminal liability, they must run concurrently in that respect. And I want to check whether have they gone that far to ensure that they prosecute this particular person criminally as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dodovo. Honorable Masekela.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, me too. I support the suspension, Chairperson. But also, in addition to that, I just want to. Sorry, Chair. There's
okay.
Yes, there is. Okay, let me just. I'll be very short. I'll be very, very short, Chairperson. I just want to find out. I think that I want to reiterate what the advocate Batoi said in response to the questions which we were having. I know that you were not there, and even the ethics the commission was not there. But she said something like, even I won't be able to quote her words word by word, but she said maybe it is the high time that also justice is subjected to the same inquiry like we have in Zondo Commission, because it's not only this case, Chairperson. There are so many cases that are coming from the magistrates. The commission will attest to that, and also the prosecutors. So it seems as if there is a lot happening in that area, and that is the area that we want to keep clean. We want to make sure that we don't have such, because, you know, if we're having such, indeed, this is denting their independence and impartiality. I want to reiterate that. Can the commission comment on that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Matt. Honorable Ngola.
Thank you, Chair. I am covered, and I must register that I support the suspension. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, honorable members. Let me then hand over to the commission and the deputy minister.
Sorry, Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Sorry, Chairperson, please. Just one thing that I thought would be raised here, which has not been raised.
Okay, hold on, Honorable Goya. I hear somebody else speaking. Who is that?
It's me, Chairperson. My hand was up.
Oh, Mohammed. Okay. Sorry, Honorable Mohammed. I'm seeing your hand only now. Thank you. I think we'll start with Honorable Goya and then Honorable Mohammed. Honorable Goya.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair. The matter that I want to raise, Chair, is this thing, and I think it's a message that we must send across the public sector, that when a person has offended and gets suspended with full benefits, well, upon being found guilty, government needs to retrieve the money that they've paid that person for the period that the person was suspended with pay. I think that's a matter that we must take up seriously, because people commit these offences, knowing for a fact that I am going to be suspended with my salary for a particular period of time. And in that period of time, they look for alternatives because they know that they've committed these crimes. So I think and it should start now, that upon being found guilty, this particular person will have, on being paid out, the Department of Justice will need to take what is due to them in terms of what they paid him during his period of suspension. So I think that should be the matter, Chair, that we need to look at. We understand that you would suspend a person because you don't want to be seen to be preempting the outcome of the investigation. But that money shouldn't just be money that is lost. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Goya. Honorable Mohammed. Honorable Mohammed.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I just wanted to also record, as the ANC, the African National Congress, we support the recommendation for the suspension of this magistrate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think before Deputy Minister and the Advocate Musa or Mr. Meyer responds, maybe let me just clarify procedure once again. As I indicated earlier, that we would be receiving briefings today, and but in terms of decisions in relation to the two committees, we'll be dealing with those in our two independent meetings on Friday, so that members are comfortable with the procedure. Let me hand over to Deputy Minister, or let me hand over to the Commission first. Deputy Minister, I think you can also respond after the Commission does. Advocate Musa, if I can hand over to you.
Yes, thank you, Honourable Chair. I think in respect of the first question that was raised, in respect of the further detailed presentation that the Magistrates Commission needed to make to Parliament, you will note from the last time that we were before Parliament during February 2020, certain events have overtaken us, namely that the COVID-19 pandemic has come along, that has now affected us to come before the committee to make the presentation. But I want to give the honourable members of the committee the understanding that we would definitely be making the presentation as soon as is practically possible in respect of that particular aspect that they've raised. The question that was raised is, why did the Ethics Division not recommend that this particular magistrate or steps be taken against the magistrate, and recommend that on one count that no further steps should be taken? I want to just perhaps maybe share with the committee that the two structures that operate in the Magistrates Commission vis-a-vis the Ethics Division and the Ethics Committee are two separate structures that complement and supplement each other but are independent of each other. So when the report came, at the time when the report was made to the Ethics Committee by the division, at that point in time, on the available evidence as it was presented at that point in time, the evidence did not point to an element of transgression on the part of the magistrate. However, when the matter came before the Ethics Committee, having carefully deliberated on the matter with my committee, we were of the view that in the circumstances, the allegations were of such a nature that independently we could in fact request a Regulation 26(1) investigation, and subsequent to that investigation, we then became privy to the information that that was presented to us. In respect of the question relating to the suspension with full pay and how long the process will take, perhaps I'm going to then hand over that particular question to Mr. Meyer, who will be able to assist the committee in relation to the suspension with the full pay and how long the process would take.
Honourable, okay, Mr. Meyer.
Honourable Chairperson.
Yes. Please go ahead. Mr. Mayor, you've muted yourself. Can you unmute?
Sorry. Honourable Chairperson, with regard to the first question, the Ethics Division received a complaint, a once-off complaint for one call in respect of Mr. Makanzi and the accused, and on the view of that it's only one count, and his explanation that it may have been that a telephonic conversation took place maybe between the accused and one of his family members. Based on that, on only one occasion, the Ethics Division was of the view that there is no sufficient evidence to charge him with misconduct. But like what Advocate Musa explained, and which is in the report, there was another investigation unrelated to this specific case where the accused was before Mr. Makanzi. And in that matter, the police investigated it, and then we were advised that there were 48 other counts. And that's when the matter was before the Ethics Committee, and the Ethics Committee considered the matter and resolved to conduct a preliminary investigation. And then based on the preliminary investigation, the commission, the committee and the commission charged him with misconduct. So I just want to clarify that. With regard to the withholding of remuneration, Chairperson, the commission is of the view that once you withhold remuneration, it must also pass constitutional muster, and it's only rare, in really very, very rare cases and exceptional cases that the commission would determine to withhold remuneration when a person is provisionally in office. Hello?
My apologies to interject, but there is some noise in the background. There's an 021 number who is part of this meeting. I don't know who this person is, and can I get the admin staff and or the IT staff to deal with this number, to mute it or remove it? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please continue.
And there's a bird at the back. I think you must just deal with the bird that is screaming at the back.
On a lighter note, Mr. Mayor, please continue.
The Chairperson, the birds are not Hadidas. Now, with regard to withholding, it's the Van Rooyen case in the Constitutional Court said really that it's only in exceptional circumstances that we should withhold remuneration when a magistrate's provision suspended from office. It's a different scenario when the commission is found guilty already of misconduct, and the minister suspended him from office on the advice of the commission, and then that the report will be tabled in Parliament to remove him from office. That's a different scenario, because then we can say, well, pending Parliament's decision to pass a resolution not to restore the particular magistrate from office, it would be justified to withhold his remuneration. So in this instance, I think it's premature to think and for the Commission to determine to withhold remuneration at this stage. I mean, he's not been found guilty yet. The investigation, preliminary investigation, has been done. So he has been charged. So it's now for the disciplinary inquiry to proceed and commence. This depends on. Can I just link it to the question how long it will take? It depends on of course, the current situation. We cannot commence with misconduct inquiries at the moment, but as soon as the lockdown has been to such an extent downgraded to a level that we can continue with misconduct inquiries, we will proceed with the misconduct inquiry as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Minister?
Chair?
I don't know who's speaking.
It's your co-chair, Chair.
Oh, Honorable Co-Chair.
Yes.
Maybe, yeah, let me take you, because I see there's some issues raised by Honorable Jantjies, and I'm not part of the PC committee, so I don't have a background on the matter. But yeah, please.
Yes, can members who are driving switch off their cameras?
Can I assist you, Chair? It's NCOP members, Honourable Sheikh, who are driving.
Can they switch off their cameras?
Honourable Dodovo and honourable members, let me not single out Honourable Dodovo, but honourable members, can you switch off your cameras and switch off your mics, especially those who are driving, because it does interfere with the signal and it affects all of us. Thank you, Honourable Magwanish. Yeah, no, okay, Deputy Minister, if you can continue.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, I also too, maybe it's a National Assembly thing, but I was watching Honourable Dodovo. I don't know if you realize when you were driving, your phone was, we were watching the trees that you were driving past. But look, just firstly on the suspensions issue, just to reiterate that magistrates are judicial officers like judges, and so for judicial independence, the minister has a very little say over disciplinary matters with them. It's handled by the Commission as it's handled by the JSC. So the minister can't suspend a magistrate. It needs to be the Commission that does that. A minister can't decide to suspend the salary. And it's all basically handled by the Commission from a fairness point of view. The Van Rooyen judgment did say that salaries can be suspended, and when they are, and if the person is found not guilty, they must be paid back. I'm not sure. I think it was I think it was Honourable Goya, or it might have been Honourable Zandamela, raising about if they're found guilty, they must pay back the salary. I don't think that would work in terms of labour law. But as I said, the Van Rooyen judgment said it can be suspended. It's only suspended, the salary is only suspended in extreme cases. More recently, the Constitutional Court in the NDPP matter, Sean Abrahams had said that a suspension, no, sorry, not Sean Abrahams, the previous NDPP had said that the NDPP couldn't be suspended without a salary. So I'm not sure if the court would re-look at that issue now, but those are the problems. The challenge is and I myself and the Commission know this, are one of the people who complain a lot about how long it takes for matters to be finalized. I don't know if it was answered. I think it was Honourable Zandamela's question that the investigations do run concurrently. Sometimes the Commission is asked to not proceed with a matter pending the criminal matter investigation, which I think is problematic, because the other aspect is that a finding of guilt in a criminal matter, there's a different onus, a different test. It's a more strict test for a criminal matter of that you are guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Whereas in a civil matter, which would be a disciplinary matter, it's a balance of probabilities where you weigh up and you see which side the scales tilt in. So it's possible to be acquitted, found not guilty in a criminal matter, and still be convicted in a labour matter, a disciplinary matter. Then just but just to stress, magistrates are not public servants, so It's the same rules really that apply to judges, except it's handled by the Magistrates Commission, not by the Judicial Services Commission. On Honourable Jantjies's question, the information that I've got is that look, I battled to get hold of the regional head, who only came back to me now, and who's meant to be emailing something which hasn't come yet. But I checked with the two chief magistrates. It's as far as magistrates that are that tested positive, it seems it's only one in the whole of the Western Cape. And then as far as courts that are affected, yes, Khayelitsha is one of them, where I think it was a clerk tested positive, and the court is currently not functional, and will probably only be functional again from Monday because of sanitization and things. Athlone, I'm told, I don't know if that was on your list, I don't see it, that was a scare. Fezeka is actually being sanitized, and I think also closed. And Philippi, there's an allegation of a staff member is positive, and if that's confirmed, that'll be sanitized tomorrow. And then in the other cluster, it's Paro sorry, just checking. It's Paro that is a court orderly tested positive in Paro in the municipal court. That's apparently separate from the main court building, so it's just the municipal court that was affected. However, I mean, Western Cape is the epicenter, so there are a number of cases. It could be orderlies who are actually South African Police Service members, which occurred in the Cape Town Magistrates Court. It could be, I know that Paul was I think a staff member. Stellenbosch, I think, was a waiting trial inmate. But yes, there are cases, and the department is working out a protocol which is meant to be discussed with all the stakeholders as to what should happen when somebody tests positive. The situation, I'm told, in the Khayelitsha court is that legal aid officials are not wanting to enter the court unless the whole court is sanitized, not just the area that the clerk was in. And then it is also affecting other areas. So in Gauteng, Kliptown, I had a matter reported today. I've just had a message from the Chief Magistrate of Port Elizabeth that an official in her court is affected. I got a message 2 days ago from the Chief Magistrate of Pietermaritzburg that a clerk had tested positive. So it is particularly more prevalent, obviously, in the areas that where COVID is more prevalent, and it then does cause significant disruptions, obviously, as to when a person is found to be positive. I think in the case of Khayelitsha, one of the complications was that the test, the person was tested some time ago, and the results took some time to come out. So I don't know if that's a bit ad hoc. We are trying to get better systems in place so that there's more information on our website as to which courts are affected. We need to look at the privacy issues around, do we say it's an interpreter or a clerk or a magistrate or whoever. Those are things we still need to look at. But I hope that suffices for now.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honourable members, I see I didn't note Honourable Hendricks. It seems that he wanted to ask a question, but I thought he had left his mic on by mistake. So I'll note him now, but honourable members, are there any follow-up questions that you have? If you could please give an indication. Honourable Masegejele, is that you?
I'm still waiting for my comment from the committee. Yes, the commission.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. There's your comment, and then there's maybe. Is there any member who wants to ask a follow-up question?
Yes, Chair. I indicated technologically.
Who's it? Honourable Jantjies.
Yes.
Honourable Jantjies. Any other member?
No.
Okay. If there's no other member, then we'll take Honourable Hendricks to ask his question, seeing that I missed him. And then followed, Honourable Jantjies will follow. And Honourable Masegejele's question still remains unanswered. Honourable Hendricks. Honourable Hendricks. Honourable Hendricks, are you still with us? Oh, okay. Okay, let me take Honourable Jantjies, seeing that I can't get hold of Honourable Hendricks. Honourable Jantjies?
Yes, Chair, I'm here. It's just two quick ones. Just to appreciate the response from the Magistrate Commission and indicate that we're looking forward to them to come back to us about the full presentation. I appreciate that. The second one also to thank the Deputy Minister for the response on those COVID-related matters, but to ask him to please make a follow-up about protocols being followed. That's all I think we need at this stage. Cape Town is an epicenter. People must just be able to follow protocols immediately. We understand the test situation because it's a national blockage, that the time lag it takes, it's long. That one is understandable, but all others, I think it's going to be important that every court follows those protocols to the T. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Jantjies. Honourable Hendricks, are you still with us? Do you still have a question you'd like to ask? Okay, I'm not sure if he's still in this meeting. Maybe our committee secretaries could give an indication. But thank you, honourable members, for those questions. Honourable Deputy Minister, let me hand over to you.
Yeah, I think that Advocate Musa needs to respond to Advocate Masegejele's question, or she can remind him if he missed it. I just wanted to say in response, sorry, to Honourable Jantjies' response. Thanks for that. We'll push the department harder for working out a protocol, because often there is, the result of this in Khayelitsha is that it's closed till Monday, because there isn't agreement over what needs to be sanitized. So we need to work this all out in advance. But maybe just let me say that one of the problems with this disease is that it does false positives. So we did have a magistrate who unfortunately was doing some training, so he was in contact with other magistrates, and he tested positive. He needed the test for something else, and magistrates had to be quarantined that he'd come into contact with. And then he had showed no indication of the illness, and his two subsequent tests were negative. So I understand there are both false positives and false negatives, which complicates matters more, because once you obviously get a positive test, you have to react. So, but we will try and get more systematic information on a regular basis and put it out on our website.
Thank you. Advocate Musa?
Yes, Honourable Chair. can I just perhaps maybe reminded of the question that was put forward by Honorable Jele? I think it was in relation to the comments that were made by Ms. Patoy, but if you can just perhaps refresh my memory, I'll highly appreciate it, Honorable Jele.
Honorable Masega Jele, if you could perhaps give more context to your question.
The comment that was made by Advocate Patoy, after we asked a question in relation to such issues like this one that we have today, of having our officials, justice officials, engaging themselves in corruption like this. And the concern was that we wanted to clean we want a clean justice system. And then she commented and said maybe we can have a parallel. We can have. Are you still with me?
We hear you.
Yes, just like in the Zondo Commission inquiry. What is the view of the commission after they have experienced? I think this is not the only issue. There are so many issues that has been coming to before them of this nature. So can I have their comment in relation to that comment that has been made by Advocate Batoyi?
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. It looks like the comment is much clearer to me. I duly take cognizance and note of the comments made by the Honorable Member and the comments made by Advocate Batoy on behalf of the NDPP. I don't believe that the Magistrates Commission would be averse to considering a parallel process like the Zondo Commission, but I just want to indicate that one, the process would require, obviously, the Magistrates Commission to deliberate in respect of this particular aspect, but the allegations of corruption that normally emanate against judicial officers are dealt with in misconduct inquiries. So to have a commission of inquiry, I really wouldn't be able to understand unless you have maybe 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 allegations of corruption against the members of the lower judiciary for one to then have a commission of inquiry. But these are allegations that come up on an ad hoc basis, and therefore we have a misconduct inquiry against them. But it's a comment that I obviously will take back to the full commission and for us to in fact deliberate. And I'm certain that perhaps when we meet on the next occasion, we would be able to maybe share additional information relating to this specific aspect that was raised.
Okay, thank you, Advocate Musa. Thank you, honourable members. Okay, thank you, honourable members. Thank you, Deputy Minister, Advocate Musa, and Mr. Mayor for your responses. Honourable members, I think we've exhausted our engagement in terms of this report. Perhaps I can ask the chair, my co-chair, Honourable Magonish, if there's anything you'd like to add.
No, thank you, Chair. I'm covered.
Thank you, Honourable Magonish. Honourable members, I think as I've indicated twice now, that in terms of the two matters that have been presented today, both committees will deliberate further and take relevant decisions when they meet within their own committees on Friday. That being said, honourable members, let me thank all of you. Thank the Deputy Minister, the members from the Commission, as well as officials from the department for your engagements today. And let me declare this meeting closed. I hope it will give sufficient time to members of the NA to also go and join their meeting. Once again, thank you, honourable members, and I'm declaring this session closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye, Chair.